All right, guys, here it is. Our 2022 FIFA World Cup knockout stage predictions. Not going to give you any kind of fuss, any suspense, anything like that. Just going to go ahead and lay it out here for you, let you see it on your screen, and go from there. For me, I really feel comfortable in these picks. I really like what we could potentially see in some of these knockout fixtures, as well as some of the rematches that might unfold as well. If it were to go down like this. So let's just go ahead and get it started. Matty G back here with you on Football Athletics. Thanks so much for joining us as always. Let's go ahead and get started with Netherlands and the United States. I really do feel comfortable that Netherlands will win Group A pretty comfortably. As for the U.S., maybe not quite as confident to be able to make it out of the group. However, I do feel like if they are, second place is a comfortable selection for them to be able to make it. But once they do potentially face the Netherlands, I feel like the Netherlands from top to bottom are maybe just a bit too much for the United States. Um, Netherlands are really out to prove a point. Again, like we said, they missed out on the competition in um, 2018. They missed the Euros in 2016. Got knocked out by Czech Republic in the 2020 Euros in the round of 16. So they really, I think, have a huge chip on their shoulder and a point to prove, considering how well this team did in 2010, making it all the way to the World Cup finals before losing to Spain. And then in 2014, losing out to Argentina on penalties in the semifinals. So for me, I really feel comfortable with putting Netherlands into the quarterfinals. So moving on, Argentina and Denmark. Now, I think for a lot of people, Denmark are a potential dark horse pick. It's a very talented side. Remember, for those who watched, they made it to the semifinals of the Euros in 2020 before losing out to England. Fought the Brits really well in that game. And I certainly could see that side making it to these knockout stages in behind France from Group D. However, I do feel like Argentina, with the attacking power that they have, could certainly see the Argentines give up some goals to Denmark, maybe potentially see like a 3-2, 4-2 style of finish in this kind of game. But overpowering wise, I just feel like Argentina has too much to offer for Denmark. So I've got them moving forward. Moving on to Germany and Croatia. Now, the Germans, again, they're going to be hungry as well. Remember that debacle they had in 2018, losing to Mexico and South Korea and getting knocked out of the group stage for the first time ever. This team, again, they are going to be incredibly hungry. I really do like their group with Spain, Japan, and Costa Rica. However, I feel like they are going to win that group, not with ease, but fairly comfortably. I really do feel confident this German side is going to take it to their opponents and get to this stage feeling good. As for me, though, Croatia, we saw them have a magical run in 2018 to the finals and play France. But I'm just not as confident in this side as I was and many were in 2018 to make another deep run. I feel like between their age and some of the youth and experience that they have mixed in this roster, Germany might be a bit too much. So I'm going to have the Germans moving forward. Now on to Brazil and Portugal. This is quite a spicy matchup if this unfolds. The Brazilians, again, I feel like they're going to win their group pretty comfortably. Still got some really tough sides with Switzerland, Serbia, and Cameroon in there. But again, Brazil, much like Argentina, they just have so much attacking power. Guys, it's insane to think, the different formations that you could kind of set out with this group and look at the number of guys that could be playing for them and the minutes that they could put together. Not only that, but just the fact that, they left Roberto Firmino at home and, they still just have so many attacking options that could go forward and score some great goals for them. Again, this could potentially be Ronaldo's last World Cup match, which again is going to be a shame at any point for both him and Messi once they finally bow out of this tournament if they don't win at all. But for me, I do feel like Brazil, much to the like of Uruguay in 2018, another South American side defeating Portugal in the first round of the knockout stages, and could see Brazil moving on to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the other side of the bracket in the round of 16, pretty straight away, England over Ecuador. Nothing against Ecuador, but I do feel like for them it would be a bit of a surprise and pretty great for them if they even do make it to the knockout stages. But again, really shouldn't be anything troublesome for England. They should be able to advance out of that fixture pretty comfortably. Moving down to France and Poland. Again, we'll see what French side shows up. We've seen them implode in years past, like 2010. 2014, they had a good run before getting knocked out by Germany in the quarterfinals. Then, of course, they are the defending world champs. So for me, I do feel like Poland and Mexico are a bit of a toss-up to see who comes out of that group with Argentina. But I did wind up picking Poland in the long run. However, I think at this point, France just have too much talent for Poland and are really going to overpower them in terms of their ability to, get forward. And again, their attacking options and just from top to bottom, this roster is so impressive. So, if France get out to an early lead and the game starts to open up, that could be, detrimental to Poland's chances. So they're really going to have to keep this game tight and even, or have an advantage on the score sheet for a while if they really want to have a chance in this. I think if France get out early, they're pretty much done for. Moving on, Belgium, Spain. I do have Belgium winning the group. Again, it seems like as days move on, I feel less and less confident with that. They did just lose to Egypt in a friendly fixture today. Again, I don't want to look into these fixtures too incredibly much. However, it's still a bit disappointing. You're trying to get in form, find a rhythm with your guys heading into next week. But at the same time, I know these guys are trying to stay healthy, avoid injury, because, that would just be a huge blow for anybody to miss out on the tournament now at this point. So still a bit disappointing that they struggled with that result. But again, still, you look at Germany, they only beat Oman, the other day 1-0, and, they should be able to crush them. So again, I don't want to take it too much, take it in too much seriousness, but still would like to see more out of Belgium. But I do feel like this team is a bit disconnected. They're not going to find maybe their rhythm as much as they did in 2018. We saw such a magical run with them to the semis before losing to France. Remember, Japan almost beat them in the round of 16. They had a 2-0 lead on them in the second half before Belgium came storming back and then had a pretty convincing win over Brazil in the quarterfinals. But for me, I do feel like Spain are going to advance. And that is such a toss-up game. I feel like that could go either way, and I don't feel confident picking Spain in this game. But just with some of the inconsistencies that Belgium could potentially have, I think I could see Spain moving forward, really outpossessing them and hopefully being able to finish their chances. Moving on, final game of the round of 16, I've got Uruguay over Switzerland. Now, I do feel like Switzerland are much like Denmark. They could be a bit of a dark horse. We saw them beat out France in that penalty shootout and come from behind down 3-1 in the Euros just a couple of years ago. So, Switzerland certainly have the talent to be able to make a decent little run if they are able to get to the knockout fixtures. But for me, I feel like Uruguay are just very impressive. And they are one of the teams that I feel like their veteran leaders and their youth are going to be able to gel incredibly well when it comes to this competition. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. Not only that, but, Uruguay are such a threat when it comes to set pieces and corners and things like that. Just go back and look at some of their goals that they had in 2018, just how impressive this team is. And, how well they use their physicality. So not saying that Switzerland can't, I just believe that Uruguay might be too much. So moving on into the quarterfinals, we've got a rematch of 2014 in the semis with Netherlands and Argentina. Certainly some different faces in these lineups as well. While I do believe that Netherlands will still have quite the chip on their shoulder and look to be hungry and eager, I think they're going to give Argentina a run for their money. We'll see how well Memphis Depay shows up. Dumfries, some of these other guys. It's just some of this, potential lineups that we could see from Netherlands as well. They've got a pretty deep squad, and I feel pretty confident in them, again, getting to the quarterfinals. But again, the Dutch are one of those teams as well. They could potentially implode. And, again, like we saw them against the Czech Republic, get an early red card and get knocked out of that tournament a couple years ago. But for me, I do still feel like Argentina are a bit too much attacking-wise. Really going to do well to score goals, and I feel like that could be one of the big talking points of this tournament. Is that being able to outlast your opponent goal wise. Not seeing as many defensive battles, 1-0 results, 2-1s, that type of thing, or 1-1s going into penalty shootouts. I really do feel like the game's going to open up, and we're going to see a lot of goals in this competition. So if that's the case, I think for the South American countries, it bodes well for them, and so that's why I've got Argentina onto the semis. Then we move all the way down here, and what a rematch again. Just to think what it would be like to see Germany and Brazil face off again, this time in the quarters instead of the semis. But of course, who can forget that 7-1 defeat that Germany had? Even if you don't watch football all that much, I'm sure at some point you've had to had to hear about it, especially if you know someone that's German or Brazilian, or at least follow soccer, even in the slightest bit. But to see this mouth-watering matchup, come to fruition again, possibly would be unbelievable and would be so exciting to see if that is the case. But again, I feel like this time for Brazil, a lot of pressure is going to be off. They're not going to be playing on their own soil this time. And they're very hungry. Remember, the last time that they won a world title was in 2002. So, this is one of the longest, if not the longest stretch that Brazil's gone without a world title. And remember, if you don't already know, they do have 5 World Cup titles. They are the winningest country in this competition. So, I feel, again, confident, again, if this game starts to open up and we start to see a lot more chances for goals to be scored, I have a bit more faith in Brazil to be able to get this done over Germany. So I've got them into the semis. Moving over to the other side, again, I swear these potential fixtures just get better and better. To see an England-France quarterfinal would just be absolutely spectacular. I know how many people were, really hoping that would happen for the final in 2018. However, Croatia, crushed that dream. So to see them potentially at least meet in this one would be awesome. I do feel like that England are coming, again, coming off of that semifinal run in 2018, the Euro final in 2020. This is still a very solid, talented squad, pretty young, very aggressive. The biggest thing that I worry about is their back line, between Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire, and some others. I'm just not 100% confident this team's going to be able to keep clean sheets. Or at least prevent teams from only scoring 1 goal. And with the amount of attacking options that France have, I do believe that they'll be too much for them. So I've got France moving on to the semis. Now, our last quarterfinal fixture, I've got Spain versus Uruguay. And while I did have Spain beating Belgium, one of the biggest concerns I have for Spain in this competition is while they do such an incredible job of being able to outpossess their opponents, and really kind of, take the game away from them and suffocate them in terms of being able to not have the ball or create their own tempo. The problem is with this new Spanish side compared to those of old, like they're, the sides that we were used to seeing in, 2008, 2010, 2012, they could finish, they could score goals on top of just being able to, make you chase the game for 90 minutes. They've had some inconsistencies being able to score goals, and I really do feel like that's going to be exploited in this competition, especially the farther they get into the knockout stages if they're able to make it. So for me, along with the physicality that Uruguay has and their ability to score on set pieces, create fouls, in potential penalties and corners and stuff like that, I've got Uruguay advancing to the semis, which would be huge for them. Again, their first semi run since 2010 before losing out to Netherlands as well, if that were to happen. Moving on to our semifinals, and Argentina-Brazil semi. What an incredible experience that would be. If anyone saw the Copa America final that we had a few years ago, that was a fantastic fixture. A lot of drama, a lot of fouls, different things like that. It wasn't the most spectacular final in the world. However, anytime you get to see these two play each other, it's something where you just really need to sit down and savor the moment and enjoy what's about to happen and unfold. So, I do feel like that if we were able to watch this unfold, that this would be absolutely spectacular for Lionel Messi to be 1 game away from another World Cup final. But at the same time, you've got, again, the most decorated country on the planet in terms of the World Cup and its history, trying to get back to the final for the first time since 2002. So, this is going to be huge. It really is if it comes down to this. But for me, I do feel confident that Brazil might overtake Argentina potentially in a 3-2, 4-3 final. It's kind of one of those games that I almost don't believe penalties will happen. I just think that they're going to go at each other so much, and we're going to see, a handful of goals, if not more, that game's either going to end in 90 minutes or in extra time. I feel confident that that could potentially happen if that were to be the case. So moving on, France, Uruguay, a rematch of the knockout stages in 2018, where we saw these two sides in the quarterfinal. Remember, Muslera had a very difficult and unfortunate mistake when Griezmann scored that goal. For those who don't know, Griezmann has got quite the attachment with some of the Uruguay players. including Godin and some others as well. I feel like Griezmann could really show up in this game. I feel like that game was super important to him back in 2018, and I feel like he is one of those guys. Even as much as Mbappe and Benzema and stuff are going to, take most of the headlines, I feel like Griezmann could certainly show up and put his name back on the map in this type of a fixture if they were able to get there. So for me, I do feel like overall, France will be able to handle Uruguay's physicality and tempo a bit better than some of their other opponents. So I've got France moving on to the final. Go ahead and talk about the third place game between Argentina and Uruguay. Again, another fantastic South American matchup. While this would be a great run for Uruguay, I really don't feel like they've got any more left in the tank. And then Argentina could win third place pretty comfortably, which certainly would not be ideal for Lionel Messi or any Argentine fans. But I do feel like if they were able to get to this game, they could, pretty comfortably handle Uruguay. And also I think take out a bit more frustration as well, just the fact that they didn't make it to the finals. So I've got the Argentines finishing in third, and on to our final, Brazil versus France. What a final this would be if it were to come down to this. Your defending champs, a two-time World Cup winner versus, again, our most historic and proud and decorated country in Brazil in these finals. As much as I would love to see France go back to back, we know how difficult it is for that to even happen in this competition, considering the target that they have on their back. And honestly, sometimes I feel a bit skeptical that France will even make it this far, and just hoping that they don't implode or have really any major hiccups along the way, especially just considering how difficult it is to get to this point a second time around in back-to-back tournaments. But for me, I've got Brazil. I've got Brazil going and winning it all. And potentially a 3-1, 3-2 type of game. We saw 6 goals scored in the 2018 final between them and Croatia. I think that's going to be the type of game that we see between Brazil and France. Certainly going to open up. Might see a few, self-inflicted wounds. However, though, hopefully we'll see a pretty clean, pacey game between two incredibly high-powered attacking teams that can really go at each other and score some fantastic goals. And again, like I said, I feel like we're going to see a ton of goals in this competition. And, guys are just going to be pushing it back lines as much as they possibly can. So for me, I feel like that's going to be huge. But in the end, we do have Brazil winning it all. Guys, let me know down in the comments what you think, any predictions of your own that you might like to share as well. Thanks again if you've gotten to this point into the video with us. We really appreciate the support. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you would as well. And again, by all means, whether it's through our TikTok page, our YouTube page, anything else, feel free to share your comments, concerns, opinions, anything like that in terms of, predictions, knockout stages, our Football with Flags World Cup going on right now, anything else. Guys, we really appreciate the support. Thank you for your time. And as always, from Matty G, peace out. We'll see you soon.